number 1, and Jeff Okudah, number 3. Just how good a prospect are they? Are there really any weaknesses in their game, and is there a comparison with either of those guys on the NFL level?
Yeah, with Young, you would expect him to be like I say, I said this 2 years ago. Everybody's kind of used that term, game wrecker, which is what he is. He wasn't the last 3 games. That's the only thing, really, though, with him. He didn't play that dominant brand of football in the final 3 games after the suspension. Now, I don't know if he was protecting himself from injury or what have you, but he wasn't. Had he dominated in those 3 games, I really contend it had been in the discussion to be the number 1 pick overall. It's a little more difficult to say Burrow was a lock pick at number 1 for Cincinnati, but that didn't happen, and it made it easier for the Bengals. I think in terms of Okudah, he to me is what Stephon Gilmore was coming out, what Patrick Peterson was coming out. He's going to be expected to be one of the best cornerbacks in this league. He has that skill set. He has the mindset for it. He's a very aggressive player, good tackler. He's not too handsy in coverage, even though he is aggressive, which I like that because you don't want to see penalties. With that, you can't get away with the things in the NFL you get away with in college. So both those kids are up at the top of the board for a reason. They're the two of the dominant players in this draft, and they're going to be expected to be 2 of the best players, obviously, coming out of this draft on either side of the ball.
Thanks, Tom.
We'll go to Ben Raven, and then Brooks Austin with Sports Illustrated.
Who the most NFL-ready prospects you are, and just kind of what could separate those guys from the rest of the pack?
Well, you expect everybody to be somewhat NFL-ready the way the game's played now, but certainly I think Isaiah Simmons, with the versatility he has, would be the number 1 guy on that list because he can run, he can cover. He covers like safety corner, he can get into the quarterback. And I think he would be the one guy you would just highlight because he's so versatile. I think he would be the most so-called NFL-ready player. And obviously Derek Brown went back for his final year at Auburn. He could have come out last year. So I think he got another year of experience, did a great job at Auburn. I think Derek Brown, what you're getting out of the defensive tackle from Auburn for that reason. And then obviously you think about, a guy like Jedrick Wills Jr., the right tackle from Alabama. He's a solid player. He's technically sound. He was consistent. He didn't have any hiccups at right tackle this year. He's the kind of guy who's plug-and-play right tackle. So, there's others, but I think at the top of the list would be Isaiah Simmons.
Brooks Austin is up, and then Chad Leipzig with the Des Moines Register.
Yeah, Mel, I was just curious, with Jake Fromm's range being late second to mid-third, what do you, did he make the right decision coming out, or was the sample size of 42 college starts enough for him to enter the draft as a junior?
Yeah, that's the tough one. So you come out, you figure, okay, I'm going to lose the 2 bookend tackles. Isaiah Wilson also came out. You think about what Pickens can be as a sophomore. That's a big plus moving forward. When Blaylock was coming off the injury, he didn't have DeAndre Swift. He moved later. So there was reasons to stay, reasons to leave. The arm strength you would hope would improve a little bit when he's a senior, but like I said, he wouldn't have the offensive line he had this year in front of him, losing the 2 bookends. So, but then you hope once you get him in the NFL, the arm strength will improve. We saw evidence of a lack of big-time arm strength, which we knew was a problem at the combine. He had trouble making some of those throws that you need to make. So I think right now he could end up being, if you look at the quarterbacks, the way they stack up, he could be the 7th quarterback draft, behind even Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma. But that doesn't mean he can't play in the league. It's just his arm strength is the big question. I think people want to say, is he going to be Aaron Murray? Is he going to be Eric Zier? Or is he going to be Andy Dalton? Or is he going to be somewhere in between? That's the big debate in these NFL draft discussions when they're talking about these teams and the quarterback you're going to take, say, in the 3rd round, which is what I expect for Fromm to be a 3rd-round quarterback.
We'll go to Chad Leipzig and then Donald Hunt with the Philadelphia Tribune.
Hi, Mel. I wanted to ask about the 2 Iowa Hawkeyes expected to be taken in the 1st round. What in your analysis has moved Tristan Wirfs up to your number 1 offensive tackle on your mock draft? And with Epenesa, you've got him sliding to 25 with the Vikings. What are GMs saying about his combine performance? Could he slide out of the 1st round entirely?
In terms of Wirfs, he's the right tackle who's played, obviously, 2 games at left tackle, and I thought did a pretty good job. In Arizona, they could use help at right tackle immediately if you deem him the best right tackle. And you talk to people in the league about that. That's all. This is not based on what I think. This is what the league thinks. So that's when you talk to your friends in the league, and that's what you get for a mock draft. That's what a mock draft's all about. So it's not me. don't act like this anything I have rated. I don't have worse as the top tackle, but I think for Arizona it'd be a good fit once they got DeAndre Hopkins. They don't need the wide receiver there as much as they did. So you take C.D. Lamb, say, out of there, would have been reunited with Kyler Murray. You put in Tristan Wirfs. In terms of Epenesa, he's dropped a bit, obviously. When you talk about 40 time, that's usually conveys to a pass rusher in the NFL. The great thing about Epenesa is you can kick him inside, third down. He can be an inside guy there, an inside presence. He has versatility and great production against pretty good offensive tackles late in the year. Austin Jackson, he dominated from USC. So I think he's a late one, at worst early two. I think he'd be a real good fit for Minnesota. They lose Everson Griffin in free agency. They pick at 25. That's where I have him going. But I'd say at worst an early second.
We'll go to Donald Hunt and then Ferd Lewis with the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
So where do you see Sean Bradley from Temple going, and what do you think of Sean Bradley?
Yeah, he was almost one of the talk about when I do the top 10 lists of the guys with versatility, he would be one of those guys. He had certainly ran exceptionally well. You saw the productivity. You think about now with situations, see Matt Rule, even in Carolina, is going to blow out these former Temple Owls, and that's because of familiarity. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if he comes into the fold on day 3. I think he's a day 3 pick. Like I say, there's somebody ahead of him that had 4th, 5th round grades. I would say 6th, 7th round, even though he had, like I say, a very impressive combine, and he had a very impressive career at Temple. But I think just the way he's slotted right now, I would say mid to late day 3.
We'll go to Ferd Lewis and then Jason Leisure with the Chicago Sun-Times.
Courage videos have shown major progress. Do you think they've changed anybody's mind as far as moving up to take him in the draft? And also, where do you see Cole McDonald from Hawaii going in the draft?
Yeah, in terms of Tua, it was a quick video, and it's nice to see. Teams now don't have a lot to go by, so that's certainly something that makes you promising. It's going to be very interesting with an April 23rd draft coming up in less than now in about a month. What's going to happen there, whether, like I say, a team's going to trade up to get a quarterback that has an iffy situation medically coming off that injury, and then there's the durability concern, which you can't predict how that's going to go, even once he's healthy. In terms of Cole McDonald, I think people want to adjust the little things mechanically. He certainly has the arm. You saw him at Hawaii, has some ups and downs, and some inconsistency, but when he was at his best, he looked like a draftable quarterback. I think he could go late, if not as a priority free agent. He's in the mix to be. I think on my list, he's the 13th best quarterback, which means probably undrafted. But if somebody has him at 8, say 9 or 10 on that list, maybe he gets into the 6th, 7th round area.
Next up is Jason Leisure, and then we'll go to Ron Counts with the Idaho Statesman.
Mel, with regard to the Chicago Bears and their limited picks, especially in the first 4 rounds, what would you say is the best case scenario for them, particularly with those 2 second-round picks? And then a separate question, I'd like to hear your thoughts on whether or not you think they should postpone the draft.
All right, in terms of the Bears, I think when you look at what they've done in free agency, what they could do now, I mean, they've added some pieces, and well, it's interesting what happens with Foles with Trubisky, but with 2 second-round picks, it's a pretty good opportunity. This is a deep draft at a lot of spots. There's no doubt about that. You're talking about a pick from the Raiders at 43. So I would say right now, when you look at the needs of this football team and what's out there, if you can add a receiver, there's a lot of depth at wide receiver. If you can add an offensive tackle, there's and corner. Like I said, the wide receiver position to me is the strongest in this draft. Laviska Shenault Jr. could be there in the 2nd round out of Colorado. It looked like he was a first until he had obviously an injury question. Michael Pittman Jr., USC, could be there in the 2nd. Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State could be there in the 2nd. KJ Hamler, Penn State could be there in the 2nd. So there's going to be some great opportunities because of the depth to get some really good players in that 2nd, 3rd round area at those positions. In terms of delaying, I would move forward with it. I think that everybody needs normalcy to set in. We do keep doing the radio. We're doing all the draft stuff, the mocks, everything's going along. Free agency went along as scheduled, even though everything wasn't perfect and ideal. We see players moving all over the place, trades being made. Everything's being done. The draft can be done, obviously, without having everybody together. No teams go to the draft anyway. It's just everything's going to be different. We have to adjust it. There's a lot more important things going on, obviously, than the NFL draft. And everybody's trying to deal with the health of their families and trying to get through this the best they can. I think the NFL can get through it. I think it's important to, like I say, give people something to focus on and occupy their minds, and that's something that's kind of an escape during these trying times when everybody's trying to deal with something much much bigger than what happens with the NFL draft. So I would think moving forward, April 23rd, 24th, 25th is something we're hopeful happens.
Ron Counts is up, and then Daryl Slater with the New York Star Ledger.
Seems to have split.
Ron Counts.
What, if anything, pardon?
Go ahead, Ron.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, Ron.
So I had a question about three Boise State prospects. First, Curtis Weaver seemed like a lock to be a first-round pick early in the process. Has kind of flipped recently. What, if anything, can he do to get back into the first round? The second question is about Edward Cleveland, the offensive tackle. Did he make himself a first-round lock with his combine performance? And the third was about wide receiver John Hightower. He ran a 4.43 at the combine. Was that enough to get him drafted?
Yes, first for Hightower, yes it was. He obviously has talent. He flashed that at Boise State. To me, he's a fifth, sixth round pick, and that's only because of the great depth at wide receiver. And then the draft that wasn't strong at wide receiver, it'd probably be in the fourth round discussion. So, yes, I think he's a day three pick who has a chance to make the team and contribute as a fourth or fifth receiver. Cleveland had a great combine on the heels of a really good career as a left tackle. Now, I projected him in Tennessee would be a right tackle there, filling in, taking over for Jack Conklin and moved on to Cleveland in free agency. I think you look at Cleveland, this guy has moved up. I think he's at worst. I have him in the late first. I think he's at worst in early second. Right now, when you stack the offensive tackles on the board, he's moved up to the point where he's the sixth guy at worst of 7 or 8. I have him at 6. Some may have him at 7 or 8. That puts him in the second. If I have him at 6, it puts him in the late first, ahead of Austin Jackson from USC and ahead of Isaiah Wilson from Georgia. I think in terms of Weaver, he's the 2 games. He had some dominant games, but it was against lesser competition. A lot of his sacks came in those 2 games, like against foes that aren't that strong. I saw him neutralize some. He doesn't have tremendous ability to close, and obviously the speed factor is an issue with pass rushers. I think he's probably right now a third-round pick who could be in the mid to late second. Where I have him rated right now, he's probably a late second, early third.
We'll go to Daryl Slater, and then David Wilson with the Miami Herald. Go ahead with your question, Daryl.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Daryl, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. As you weigh Judy versus Lamb there, potentially for the Jets at 11 with Anderson gone, who do you think is a better fit for Adam Gase's offense? And then also, potentially, do you think Thomas could be an option there for them to tackle instead of Wills? I know you projected Wills there, but what about Thomas maybe?
Thomas is I think it's just a little high. This is again talking to people. It seems a little high for Thomas, who is now, like to say, the 4th offensive tackle with most you speak to. So that would be, but if you need a left tackle, he's the second best left tackle. Now they brought in George Fant. Right tackle is an issue. If you say we're going to move Chumba Doga to guard, if you feel you can get by with the right tackle with Doga, then you would draft a wide receiver in Judy. Judy, to me, in the slot is very tough to deal with. Obviously, for route running ability, he's very, very effective there. His hands, he had a couple drops, but overall he's very consistent. Great attitude, great approach. CeeDee Lamb, 50% of his yards came in the slot, 50% of his yards came on the outside. He ran 4.51, and only some of the Henry runs ran 4.27. So you knew that Lamb wasn't going to be the speed burner, but speed for wide receivers is very overrated. It's how you apply it on the field. He does. He's got tremendous stiff arm. He's got great run after the catch ability, which is his strength. He's a powerhouse with the ball in his hands. He breaks tackles. He runs hard. He's quick. He's explosive. I think that's a tough call. That would be whoever they prefer. I mean, you could go Judy, you could go Lamb. Henry Ruggs III is right there with some teams as a top receiver. So that's a call right there. They're going to have to make the Joe Douglas and his scouts there with Phil Savage in that group. So I would project Judy. I almost went with Judy. Obviously, Robbie Anderson signed right after the mock came out.
We'll go to Suzanne Halliburton, and then Angelique Shingales with the Detroit News.
Hey Mel, I'm going to ask you a big picture question. When the combine came, there wasn't a thought that there would be no pro days. So who does not having a pro day based on their combine performance, who does that hurt the most? And conversely, who might it help the most? Prospects.
question. That's a very good question because I think the guys that weren't able to go to the combine were hurt by not having pro days, obviously. And there were some good players. If you look at that list of guys that weren't at the combine, there were some pretty good football players that did not get invited. So those guys would be hurt as well. But I think KJ Hamler not having a pro day at Penn State where he needed to catch the ball effectively. He had some drops at Penn State. So we know he's fast. Know how athletic he is, and he's breaking space, but I think not having a pro day for him would hurt him a little bit. And then obviously you think about guys that helped themselves the most at the combine. I think Mekhi Becton, the offensive tackle from Louisville, moved up to at least get himself in discussion for the 4th pick overall.
We'll go to Angelique Shingales, followed by Jim Wyatt with the Tennessee Titans.
No, thanks. You seemed a little lukewarm on Peoples-Jones heading into the combine, and I was wondering if that changed for you a little bit based on the numbers you put up, and also sort of piggybacking on what Suzanne asked, how does this situation hurt someone like a Mike Dana, who's a transfer at Michigan, and a Jordan Glasgow who's trying to get on with the team?
Yeah, I think those guys are affected. I think that, like you said, there's always that 20 to 25 players that, like the combine, and you say, oh, after the combine's over, then you get the pro day guys who really have a chance to shine, and they go back and they force people to go back and look at tape on them. And they don't get drafted. People get Kevin Byard from Middle Tennessee State wasn't even at the combine yet. Has had a great pro career. It was like a 4th round pick. We've had 2nd round picks not go to the combine, 3rd round picks not be at the combine. This year, that will affect that. Peoples-Jones, I just kept waiting for dominance. Actually, 44.5 vertical, runs under 4.5 at 6'1.5", 212. He's got that catch rate issue on. He's got big hands. He just has to show a little bit more of a 1-2. People can't blame Shea Patterson. Shea Patterson was a pretty good college quarterback, not elite, but it wasn't like he didn't have anybody throwing the ball. And other receivers outproduced him. Look at the other guys. They put up bigger numbers, better average per catch, better numbers. So I think you can't excuse it all away. And I just would have liked to see a little bit more assertiveness, a little more consistency, and play to the level of those computer numbers. And I didn't see that. Todd's higher on him than I am. I have a 4th round grade on Peoples-Jones. Todd can speak to what he has now, but I think when you get into round 4, round 5, if he's there, and I don't think he will be, but if he got to the 4th, 5th round, you roll the dice, it'll all come together for him. But any higher, I think it would be you're basing it on the talent. And the talent, he's got 1st round talent. But he didn't play like a 1st rounder, and that's, you say, the underachiever label, whatever you want to call it. But I always say I have a 4th, 5th round grade on him right now.
All right. Pardon the pause here, Jim Wyatt, and then Ryan Dunleavy with the New York Post.
Well, the quarterback that you expected the Titans behind Washington goes the top quarterback, and your previous thoughts and follow maybe your thoughts from Logan Woodside, who just come out of Toledo. He's going to be a competitor as well.
Yeah, I couldn't get a lot of that question when you started out, but I'd say as far as quarterbacks are concerned, that could be guys, I think, like you say, that couldn't be beaten stars or backup types. I think James Morgan from Florida International falls into that group. He's got the height at 6'4". I think he's got an NFL arm. He can move well enough. I think he's the kind of guy that you pick up in the 5th, 6th round. I think can help you if he's there. So I like Morgan. Steven Montez, if you want to roll the dice on talent, he has the talent. He's got a big-time arm. He's 6'4", 230. He can spin it, but he's inconsistent. So I think you want the guy who's a little bit more, maybe ready to go. And Morgan, maybe if you want to go roll the dice on upside, you would look at Steven Montez from Colorado.
Ryan Dunleavy is up, and then we'll go to Jamison Hensley with ESPN Baltimore.
Now I want to follow up on 2 quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, where you mentioned him a couple times, but if you could expand on him, are we sure now after the combine that he is a quarterback and not going to be asked to do a lot of other things? Like, can he be Lamar Jackson more than Taysom Hill? And then Jordan Love and where he stands?
In terms of where he is right now, I think he's a late 2nd, early to mid 3rd. I thought that back in September, October, and when people were talking about 5th, 6th round for him, I thought that was way, way low. He threw the ball well at the combine. He had a heck of a career at 2 different big-time programs. He won a ton of games. He rushed for a lot of yards. He scored a ton of touchdowns. He did everything. I mean, obviously, they'll say, well, some things he's a tweak. He can hold the ball. This and that. Bottom line is, this kid produced. He's a great kid. Talk about loyalty. Talk about a guy can go back to two big schools and be revered as a guy that can be a hero of those two programs and what he's meant to those two programs at Alabama and Oklahoma. I think, like I say, late second, early third, and then to Taysom Hill, he's considered the quarterback of the future in New Orleans. That's realized what Taysom Hill's done since he came out of BYU, and I think that role, and I've said this, he can be a contributor, Hurts can be, as a rookie with those types of packages that you can put in there, and you can't do that with some of these other quarterbacks like Fromm and some of these other guys. So he gives you immediate production, immediate contribution as a rookie, and that others will not be able to do, regardless of who he goes to. You can have a great starter and still use Hurts in packages, so that's going to help him become, I think, the late second, early third round pick. And Jordan Love, I thought about 12 to the Raiders, having 23 to New England. Once you get past the Raiders, you get into Never Land. The Raiders are going to try to help Carr and get players like C.J. Henderson and a receiver, maybe like T. Higgins or C.D. Lamb or somebody like that. Or are they going to go and get the quarterback who could be maybe an improvement over what they have? And Carr and Mariota is the backup. In Jordan Love, John Gruden always screamed us at the meetings about not having a hand-picked quarterback. And you look at that, and John, is he going to take that hand-picked first-round quarterback I'm talking about? First-round quarterback in Jordan Love, who some have compared to a young Patrick Mahomes. I don't buy into that. I like Love, but I don't think he's to that level. But a lot of people had questions about Mahomes coming out. I didn't, but some did. So again, I'm realistic about Love. I think at 12 he makes sense. At 19, where the Raiders have another pick, it would make sense. Certainly at 23 to New England. I just think you can't excuse away some of the things that happened in a couple games this year, where they were the better team, even though they lost players, and they still struggled against teams that were combined. Colorado State, New Mexico combined 6 and 18. He struggled in those two games. So to me, the inconsistency this year is a concern. 20 touchdowns, 17 picks, but he lost 9 starters. He lost 4 starters on the line. He lost his top 5 receivers. And he lost Darwin Thompson. So I understood that going into the year, that his numbers would be down. It was the same thing with Darnold and Allen when they went into their final year. So you get that. You just wish he was more consistent against opponents that weren't very good. And that's the thing. He didn't play over the last 2 years many opponents who were of top quality. So the schedule was very easy. And unlike Herbert, who played a much tougher schedule. So that's why I separated with Herbert over Love. But I do think at 12, he would be maybe in the discussion, or strongly in the discussion, for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Jamison Hensley, and then Eric Hansen with the South Bend Tribune.
Hey, Mel, Tom Flacco, Joe's younger brother, is a small school prospect. What's been your evaluation of him, and what do you think his chances of maybe even getting drafted?
I don't think so, James. I think it's too many quarterbacks, too strong to draft at a lot of positions. He reminds me a lot of David Blau. If you saw David Blau play at Purdue and make the Detroit Lions, I think he's a kind of, I would say, a lesser version, but coming out of Towson, obviously, would be. The guy played in the Big Ten at Purdue, even though Tom was at Western Michigan and Rutgers prior to this. But I think you look at the height, and you look at, decent arm, not a great arm. He can move, that. He's an athlete, was a baseball player as well. I've watched him a lot, obviously, watching a lot of Towson games. I see a little David Blau in him, and Blau maybe pushed his way on him. Actually played it with Detroit Lions, but I wouldn't go that far. But if you want to comp, that's who it would be. Like I said, Blau was undrafted, so I'd say he's going to have to battle his way into it as a priority undrafted free agent if the team views him that way, and then see what happens.
Eric Hansen, and then Eric Dalala with the Denver Broncos.
Notre Dame's 2 edge players, Julian Okwara and Colin Kareem Warnate, to do things at the combine. They were planning to do them on pro day. Without medical checks or that pro day, how's that going to affect those 2? And where did you have Chase Claypool projected before the Senior Bowl and the combine?
Yeah, he had a second-round grade at worst, the early third, and he's in the late first, early second. So the combine really, on the heels of everything you said, and a solid career, allowed him to be where he is right now. It's rare. He also has dual versatility. If you're looking for a move tight end, he could be that guy at 6'4 and a quarter, almost 240 pounds. Running 4.42, over a 40 vertical. Those are extraordinary numbers. They're historically great numbers for a kid his size. That's why I think Green Bay, who's looking for a tight end and a receiver. You get a combo guy in Claypool. In terms of Okwara, you're going to go back 2 years ago when he was really good. And if you look at the tape there, he had first round tape. He had some early second round tape. So I would think if you want a pass rusher with some length, you could look at him in the late second, early third. Kareem as well had some solid tape. I think he's at worst a third round pick. But I think Okwara is the guy that's very intriguing to me. Anytime you get a pass rusher that you can get, and I've talked about the Ravens' ability to get pass rushers in that, say, third round area, and that's where I think where Okwara would go at 6'4" and change. He's got a really long arm. He has the sack production, and he's got the ability to get after the quarterback. I think if you get him in the third round, Okwara would be a really nice pick.
Eric Dalala, and then Chris Thomason with St. Paul Pioneer Press.
Yeah, Mel, how likely is it that you think the Broncos would have to trade up from 15 to get one of those top 3 receivers? And if those guys are gone, is there value to pick a different receiver there at 15, or would you wait until the second round?
Good question. I think in terms of the 15th pick, I have Ruggs going there, as you saw, but with the Jets taking the tackle now, they got some help. When Arizona made that move for Hopkins, that took maybe wide receiver off of 8. Okay, so then you say Jacksonville, they could. I don't think so. The Jets did. Just say one of the other teams in the early portion did. And then if you say the Jets do, then you would have the third receiver going to the 49ers. Then you would have the fourth receiver going to Denver. So then you'd be into T. Higgins, whoever they like there. They like a receiver enough to take him there. So they just have to hope that nobody in the top 10 takes a receiver.
We'll go to Chris Thomason and then Tom Green with AL.com.
Hey, Mel, hope you're doing well. What do you see the Vikings potentially doing with their 2 first-round picks, number 22 and number 25? And what do you think of the possibility there's so much depth at wide receiver, maybe they don't take a receiver in the first round and take some guys at some other positions where there's maybe not as much depth?
Yeah, that's always a possibility. And some of those other receivers that I like are Antonio Gibson from Memphis is a really good football player. He's got great versatility as far as running back, receiver. Use him on the jet sweeps. There's a lot of things you can do with him. So he would be a guy to throw into that group and say, he belongs solidly in the second round discussion. I think you look at Lynn Bowden Jr. out of Kentucky with his versatility, play quarterback this year out of necessity. He would be a guy in the third round mix. I think if you want a guy that I think Isaiah Coulter from Rhode Island, watched a lot of him. He did the job against some big time opponents this year at Rhode Island. Tested well at the combine, so Isaiah Coulter from Rhode Island could be a 4th or 5th round receiver. In terms of the first round for the Vikings, if you look at needs, it's defensive end, offensive tackle, wide receiver. I haven't taken a wide receiver at 22 and Denzel Mims-Mailer, who really benefited from the draft process in addition to having a great year. And then taking the defensive end, A.J. Epinesa from Iowa. They could go at 25 with Josh Jones, the offensive tackle from Houston. They could go with Ezra Cleveland, the offensive tackle from Boise State. So there's going to be offensive tackle options available. I think at 25, a defensive end option with Epinesa, and then the wide receiver options at 22 or 25, whatever they deem the guy that they really want. Where's the best spot to get him? Or wait until the second round or we're in the fourth round to get some. I think receiver. There's going to be, when you have 30 to 35 receivers with second, third round grades, there's going to be some 5th round receivers out of this group. And you're going to see some really good players drop to the points where you never thought was fine. I didn't even mention Jalen Rager from TCU in the second round. James Prochet from SMU is going to be a really good, I think, 5th round pick for somebody. The other receiver at Rhode Island, Aaron Parker, is a late rounder priority free agent can play. You're going to get guys coming in that aren't even drafted that are going to make teams at wide receiver this year.
Tom Green and then Dave Burkett with the Detroit Free Press.
And I wanted to ask you about a couple of Auburn guys you have in your position rankings. First off, what is it about Noah Benogany that makes him your number 3 corner? And then Marlon Davidson as the number 4 defensive end. What stands out about him? And you have 3 defensive ends going in the first round now. How close is he to kind of making that cut?
Yeah, he was close. I think that when Davidson late first, early to mid second, he's got versatility. You talked about the production, the Senior Bowl week. All those that adds up to him being signed. And that group isn't all that strong right now. So you look at Ito Gross Matos. I think he's solidly the third. After that, you're hard pressed to find a fourth. After Davidson, I don't think there's one. Alex Highsmith, a combo guy out of Charlotte, could have his hand on the ground, could play as an outside linebacker in a 3-4. There's really not much else there. So I think if you need one, you better take him early. That helps Davidson maybe get into the late first, early second. Iguanagany, I like his versatility. I think he helped out on special teams in the return game, obviously, former wide receiver. He keeps getting better and better. His tackling improved. His instincts in coverage made the progress this year. He still has some work to do in terms of his coverage technique, but he's got awesome talent. And you keep seeing it. You just think he's just touched the surface of what kind of player he can be at corner because of the limited experience being a former receiver. So I think he's in that late first round. You can debate whether he's a third corner. At worst, he's probably the fifth corner. Jalen Johnson, Utah, Jeff Gladney, TCU, Trayvon Diggs, Alabama, Christian Fulton, LSU, Terrell Clemson are in that group as well. But I think if you have him as the third or fourth corner, he's got to be in the late first round discussion. You have the 49ers and the Chiefs, both at the end of the first round, looking at cornerback as a potential big-time need area for them.
Dave Burkett, and then Bill Bender with the Sporting News.
Hey, Mel, two things. I know you talked about Tua, but just to sort of put a bow on that, just given everything going on in the world, no physicals, no in-person meetings, how likely do you think it is a team actually trades up for him, or maybe even that he falls because of everything? And then two, if the Lions go with Okudah up top, like you have in your mock, what position would be the sweet spot for them early in round two?
Yeah, I think if you look at right now, I would think what you take, if you look at maybe an outside backer or an interior offensive lineman, I think that would be a spot to maybe look at in round two. And I think if you look at guys who could be there at that point, I like Robert Hunt, Louisiana Lafayette, as a tackle guard. Ben Bredesen, Michigan, is another one. Damian Lewis, LSU. So I think there's some options there in terms of outside linebacker. I've mentioned some of those guys during the course of today, but I think of Zach Vaughn from Wisconsin, he dropped down that far. Josh Uche from Michigan, Lewis from Alabama would be another one. There could be a possibility there. So in terms of Tua, I just think when you look at where he is right now, I don't think that, I think medical and all, we obviously getting your medical and your doctors to sign off on him is so critical, and that's going to have to happen, obviously. I just have always thought that you medically redshirt him. You let his body heal. You don't expect him to play. Four of the top five most active winningest signal callers in the NFL right now, the guys that are active playing, winningest quarterbacks, 4 of the 5 didn't play as a rookie. Only one that did was Ben Roethlisberger. Okay, the two guys that were the MVPs last year, Mahomes didn't play as a rookie, played the final game. That was it. Like Lamar Jackson didn't play until he played late in his rookie year. So then there's the last 2 MVPs. So you would talk about now. There was nothing medical about any of those guys. This is medical. Okay, and then you have the addition of sitting and watching and learning as a rookie, which has helped all those quarterbacks I mentioned. You say, well, that was a different era with some of those guys that are older. What's a different era with Patrick Mahomes? What's a different era with Lamar Jackson? So, and he didn't play right away. Mahomes didn't play at all as a rookie, and Jackson didn't play, I'd say, till later in the season. So, I think medically redshirt him. That doesn't make that as important because as long as the medical people sign off, that's not as critical if you go in with realistic expectations of what he's going to do as a rookie.
We'll go to Bill Bender and then Steve Megaree with the Associated Press.
Mel, this is Jeff. Another Tua question. The combination of Alabama, the track, the numbers you put up there, the hip injury, and now the quarantine, does that make him the maybe most interesting top 10 quarterback prospect you've evaluated in a long time? And then a quick follow-up, Christian Fulton, a guy, why hasn't he generated more buzz given the combine and what he put together at LSU?
Well, in terms of, let's go to, go to Fulton first and then go back to Tua. I think Fulton's in that mix to be, I'd say runs 4.46, solid athlete, he's almost 6 feet tall, he was almost 200 pounds, so 5'11 and a half, 200-pound corner who did have a good year. I think he bounced back. He had some times where if he was beaten, it would kind of bother him a little bit. He kind of matured there. He bounced back, and he had a rough outing, he bounced back. So I think the ability to just forget about it. You got to have a short memory at corner. He developed that. As far as where I have him right now going, I think second round is where he'll come off the board. I have right now as the 7th best corner. His grade is the same as the 4th corner. So 4th to 7th, 8th is not much difference there. So they're going to be all second round corners the way I see it right now. One of those guys may slide into the late first. But I think in terms of Tua, yes, he would be the most intriguing because of that. The limited ability to see and then limited knowledge with the medical, with what's going on in the world right now in our country in terms of even with just having the 3 lower extremity injuries. Forget it, everything would have been perfect world this year, and everything that's done the way it's always been done. You still have
Steve Negary, and then Luke Johnson with the New Orleans Picayune.
I was just wondering, I've heard so much about this wide receiver class. What makes it so good? What makes it smart? And just historically, how much better is this group of wide receivers than maybe a previous draft class? Kind of fair.
Well, it's the depth, and I think it's seeing guys like, you think about a Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State, who's a really good player, ran 4.5 at a 40 vertical, keeps getting better and better and better. He's an early to mid second round pick. That's why, I mean, if you see some guys I mentioned, like an Isaiah Coulter from Rhode Island, you can get him in the 4th round. If you can see an Antonio Gibson from Memphis in the 3rd round, you can get some of these guys late. You're going like, where does a Colin Johnson from Texas go with his kind of size? Where's a Devin Duvernay, a slot receiver out of Texas? Where does he fall? I mentioned KJ Hill, an overlooked guy from Ohio State. He's a really good player. He doesn't have the elite numbers, but all he does is produce. He's the kind of guy who can get lost in the shuffle again. And then you get the kind of, I would say, the talented guys who put up the numbers expected, like a Donovan Peoples-Jones. A guy like Malcolm Perry from Navy, former quarterback, projected like Antoine Randall to a wide receiver position. I haven't even mentioned some guys like Quez Watkins from Southern Miss who came out early and tested well. So it's just the depth. All these guys that we're talking about, not even mention a lot of guys. I mean, it goes easily 35 to 40 deep in terms of guys who can play in this league.
Thank you.
Luke Johnson, and then Joe Rudder with the Pittsburgh Times.
Two-part question here. First up, I wanted to ask you, the Saints don't have a ton of need per se, but do you see any specific positions that would make sense for them to address at the end of the 1st round? And then what stands out to you about this LSU class?
Yeah, in terms of the Saints, I still think linebacker is something they could address. Kenneth Murray from Oklahoma, Patrick Queen from LSU, Zach Vaughn from Wisconsin. There's going to be some linebackers where the Saints are picking. They're going to be really attractive. Corner, if you want to know Iguabanahe there from Auburn, that might be a little high. It's a drop off after C.J. Henderson is the 2nd corner. So I don't know if they'll be able to see that as something. If you're picking 24, you want a guy in your top, say 15 to 20 on the big board. I think that would be more inclined to be a linebacker like Murray or Queen or Vaughn. At that particular point in round 1. In terms of LSU, I talked about a lot of those guys. I haven't talked a lot about Justin Jefferson, the wide receiver, had a great year. He became more consistent catching the ball. Really benefited from Joe Brady's influence as well. Ran 4.43 at the combine. 37.5 vertical on the heels of what you saw during his career and the improvement. I think he's solidly in that. I'd say for him, 19 to the Raiders, 21 to Philadelphia, 22 to Minnesota, in that area for Justin Jefferson. And then Grant Delpit, the pro day was going to be important, obviously. We'll see what happens in terms of Delpit and what he runs, but didn't have the year expected. I think he's more of a mid to, I'd say solid 2nd rounder, at worst early 3rd rounder for Delpit, who's dropped down a bit from where he was projected back in August.
Go to Joe Rudder, and then Ben Strauss with the Washington Post.
Yeah, hi, Mel. Do you see the Steelers getting a playmaker at 49, and what are some of the guys you think might be available to them there?
Well, I think if you look at what they could be looking at in terms of players, the way that the defensive cornerback position, interior defensive tackle, at a running back, and I think that's where the running back depth will allow that to happen. Like I say, Zach Moss from Utah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire from LSU, Keyshawn Vaughn, Vanderbilt. I mentioned Darrington Evans from Appalachian State. Some defensive tackles, with Hargrave moving on. I think you look at guys like Jordan Elliott, Missouri, Devon Hamilton from Ohio State. I think James Lynch from Baylor reminds me a lot of Dean Lowry when he came out of Northwestern. You get him in early day 3. Neville Gallimore, Oklahoma, Ross Blacklock, TCU. There's some really good. I think 2nd, Justin Madubuike from Texas A&M. If he doesn't go in the late 1st, it'd be a good 2nd rounder. Gallimore's got a 2nd round grade. Blacklock has a 2nd, so I'm thinking 1st on Blacklock. Elliott's got a 2nd round grade. Say Lynch has a 4th round grade. Hamilton has a 3rd round grade. So there's a lot of defensive tackles in this draft that could help the Steelers.
We'll go to Ben Strauss, and then Josh Dubois with the Associated Press.
Mel, have current events or actions in free agency changed your thoughts on if the Washington Redskins should draft Tua?
I think when you talk about what happened there with Kyle Allen, obviously, being brought in, it seems like Chase Young would be the guy. Tua's medical and the question marks there may prevent that from happening. It would be something in a perfect situation you would have thought would have been possible. Take Tua and then see what happens. But I think Chase Young, the great pass rusher, would make sense there. Hope that Dwayne Haskins is the guy. You brought in Kyle Allen, obviously, with the familiarity there. I think you look at right now where the Redskins are in terms of a team. It revolves around the offensive line doing their job with Haskins, getting another receiver. They should be able to benefit from this group. You've got a strong group, and Terry McLaurin had a really impressive rookie year. So I think in terms of the second pick now, I think Chase Young, you would almost lock it in.
We'll go to Josh Dubow and then Courtney Cronin with ESPN Minneapolis.
Well, you talked a little bit about the quarterbacks who have benefited by sitting. Early on when they were drafted, are there guys that you looked at back that you thought would have been good who maybe would have been able to benefit from that and playing right away was detrimental to them?
That's an interesting question because every team's going to handle their quarterbacks differently in terms of expectations. When you draft a guy like Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota, 1-2, they're going to have to play right away. And then, other quarterbacks, if you draft a little later, they have to wait. And even though Russell Wilson was a third-round pick, and they brought in Matt Flynn that same year. Look what happened there. Everything's different. There's all different situations, and some are a little more complicated because of changes in terms of coordinators and what have you during a quarterback's career that plays into how good that quarterback is. But I just think in terms of Tua, it's pretty simple. The medical forces almost that to happen this year. So I think in terms of what happens with Joe Burrow and then going to the Bengals, obviously Andy Dalton more than likely heading on somewhere in the trade. You think about where quarterbacks can go in this draft after that. You look at the third quarterback and where the quarterbacks are going to be picked. And the teams that may take him, Justin Herbert, if he goes to Miami or the Chargers, are they going to let him sit, watch, and learn for a while? Jordan Love, if he goes to the Raiders, they have Derek Carr. It'll be a great spot because he needs to sit. So I think Love would be in a good spot going to the Raiders. Herbert with the Chargers, they have Tyrod Taylor. Miami, would they let him wait and sit, watch, and learn? Burrow going to Cincinnati. So you can see some scenarios there where quarterbacks are going to have to play. Others, if they go, say if Love went to the Raiders, it would be a perfect scenario for him.
Courtney Cronin and then Prene Malampati with Baylor.
Courtney Cronin has disconnected.
Okay, we'll go to Prene Malampati with Baylor and then Mike Kay with NewJersey.com.
No, can you talk about what you see in Denzel Mims and the potential he brings, and then whether he would be a good fit with the Eagles at 21?
Yeah, Mims, the kind of year he had, you think about, all-star scenarios going down and doing what he did there. You think about a 4.38 40, almost a 40 or 38.5 vertical. The size, almost 6'3", almost 210 pounds. What you want to do is nail the process. Have the year, all-star, combine, and if it all comes together positively, you're going to soar up the board, and he did. And some separation there after, people say after the top three, and there is. I mean, after Judy, and after Lamb, and after Ruggs, and T. Higgins, then you're looking for that fifth receiver. Justin Jefferson nailed the process as well. He had a great year, then a great combine. Mims did as well. So I think Mims and Jefferson, along with Higgins, are all vying for that fourth receiver off the board spot. And that's going to determine, like I say, the team you go to. You're talking about several teams in that area needing wide receivers. I could see Dallas taking one, even though they got a lot of money wrapped up in Cooper. I could see certainly Vegas taking one at 19. I could see Philadelphia, Minnesota. You could see certainly Minnesota at 25, all looking at wide receivers. With Minnesota with those two picks, one of those two picks, you would have to think is a wide receiver. So I think there's a great spots for Mims, like I say, anywhere between 19 and, say, 25.
Mike Kay and then Joey Kaufman with the Columbus Dispatch.
What linebackers do you like? Which linebackers do you kind of like in that second to third round range that maybe have a little bit more athletic ability, not finished product, but guys that can kind of move and have a lot of range?
I would say Alex Highsmith from Charlotte gives you that combo guy. who tested pretty well and showed that Charlotte, as a former walk-on, what he could do getting after the quarterback. He gives you dual versatility. So I think he's intriguing. I think Zach Vaughn is a guy you can move around, get a lot of production as a pass rusher. You can do a lot of things with him inside, outside. I think he's certainly one of the more versatile guys. I mentioned Joey Noguara from Notre Dame as well. It's a guy that gives you that. Anthony Jennings from Alabama would fall into that same category. So those are some of the guys. I think Jonathan Grenard from Florida as well would be a guy to look at if he drops a little bit because he didn't run as well as expected at the combine. As I already mentioned Bradley and I from Utah. So those are some of the more versatile guys that could give you a lot of flexibility once you bring them into the fold.
Joey Kaufman is next, and then Drew Davison with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
Joey Kaufman has disconnected.
Okay, let's try Drew Davidson, please.
You guys, but just curious to think, we got Blacklock, Gladney, Rager, who's most likely to maybe slip into the first round, and then specifically with Rager, how hard is it to kind of scout and evaluate him when you get a true freshman quarterback and the passing offense maybe working on level with some of these other guys?
Yeah, I think in terms of Rager, you saw enough at TCU. I mean, he became a guy who you looked at and viewed as a fear factor player once he's in the NFL. Oh, that's how I would put him on my fear factor list. Anytime you get a guy with his kind of athleticism, I like the compact frame. I love his speed, his athleticism. To me, he's a second-round pick who's going to play a long time in this league and be highly productive. But Ross Blacklock, I think, has a chance to be a person. I didn't see the consistency in terms of sack production, game in and game out. There were games he was a little too quiet, a little too much hand fighting at the line of scrimmage. I didn't see the ability in the backfield to wreak havoc on a consistent basis. With Blacklock, Todd's higher on Blacklock than I am. He thinks he's a first. I think he's a second. Gladney, I like. People think it's a little handsy at times, but hey, his coverage skills, his feet, his awareness. It wouldn't shock me if he went in the late first. I think more second round though for him. So I think Rager second, Gladney second. I think Blacklock second as well. As I said, Todd, I think had Blacklock in his first.
We'll go to Zach Klein with ABC Atlanta. Zach, go ahead with your question.
DeAndre Swift, why you have him be number one running back, and what sets him apart from the field, and is there a comp you can hook us up with? Well, I think what sets him apart is the completeness. As a runner, receiver, blocker, and ball security. All four areas, he comes out on top ahead of J.K. Dobbins and Jonathan Taylor. Now, Dobbins is a fierce runner. I think he's the best running back. Pure runner. He and Jonathan Taylor will be the two best pure runners. I think when you look at hands, who gets the edge over both? Ball security gets the edge over both. Even though I think Swift is even though Dobbins is a better receiver right now than Taylor. Taylor needs to improve as a receiver and have better ball security. 18 fumbles, 15 lost at Wisconsin is a concern. He had the fumble against Oregon in the Rose Bowl when he was tripped by Troy Dye. Dropped a swing pass in that game as well. So I think Taylor, great runner, tested phenomenal, 4.39 at 226 pounds coming out of Wisconsin. That's why I think he's a second rounder, not a first. I think Dobbins is an early to mid-second as well. I think Swift, I'd say because of the completeness, is intriguing for Tampa Bay at 14, Miami, whether you look at 18 or 26. And guess what? The problem is, if you don't go to Tampa or you don't go to Miami, what other team is going to prioritize running back to take to DeAndre Swift if Tampa and Miami don't? That's the tough part of a mock first round. Swift is one of the best 20 players in this draft right now on the big board. For me, it's 17. It's just finding a fit for a running back when most teams are very well fortified at that position.
All right, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today. I do realize we had some technical difficulties. If anyone has a question or concern, please feel free to give me a call or send me a note. But we will have more calls, so please keep an eye out for those future advisories, and thanks for being with us on the phone.